But I think because I think it's going to take up quite a bit of time, and I know we'll only have like 40 minutes before it cuts us off. Everybody who has said, like all the students, when I said we're going to have somebody Irish come on and talk, they were all like, "Ooh, tell us about the conflict in Ireland." So we don't have months, I'm afraid, but try and give us maybe like a summary of like what is happening, because this blows my mind. This blows my mind, Liv. This will probably do the same to you. Petrol bombs are a normal everyday part of Belfast life.
A petrol bomb on a bomb scare would be normal. Like if you were in school and someone was like, "Oh, it was shut down for a bomb scare," you're like, "All right, fair enough then. When this have the day off."
If you said that in England, that's a terrorist attack. That's not just like a casual like, "Oh no, there's a bomb on the street."
When my mom was growing up, like it was really normal just to have like things thrown at buses and all and everything. Like my mom got a brick through the bus window to her head because that was just a normal thing back in the day.
Oh my god, poor Lisa. Jeez. So yeah, give us a little crash course of the conflict in Ireland. Go on.
How far am I going back here?
I don't know what's like the most important, like if there's any like background information that you need to know, because would you say the conflict is
obviously more... okay, obviously England came over like in the 1900s, and it was at the 1800s, late 1800s, and took over, and then in 1916 there was a big revolution, and there's 32 counties in Ireland, but England only kept 6 because of the revolution, so they signed a treaty, and the 6 counties in the north, which makes up Ulster, but there's 3 counties in Ulster that's in the south, but there's 6 counties in Ulster that's in the north, so it's very strange for politics.
Why is it? Because Ulster's on the west coast, yeah?
No, the east coast.
Oh, I'm lost then. I don't know. So what does Ulster, does the border go through Ulster?
Yeah, Ulster's north. Ulster's the most north, and then it goes in the east and west. Like it's the whole of the north of Ireland, like in the south and because like when I say the south, it's not a perfect divide. The border, like it goes around like this. Like Donegal is in the north of Ireland, but in the Republic of Ireland, whereas Down and all and Antrim is in Northern Ireland.
That's so confusing. If any of the students are watching and very confused, don't worry, because me and Liv are equally as confused.
We'll have to find like a YouTube infographic.
Shall I try and find a little map so that I can put a map up so we can do what we did last time where we had like a screen share?
That's a good idea, actually.
Map of Ireland, because I feel like this could make it less.
And then obviously the conflict from 1916 was just kept intensifying in the north, but in the south, obviously they just went on.
Okay. Sorry, give me one sec. Tell me if this is an adequate map of Ireland. Is this a good map?
Yeah.
Okay. How did we get the screen share thing? Oh, never mind. Just do that. Yeah. Okay. Now explain. Now we've got some context.
So I live in Down, which is the west or the east coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's 6 counties in the north, which is Down, Armagh, Tyrone, Derry, Antrim, and Fermanagh. But then you have Donegal on the left there, which is in the Republic of Ireland.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. Why is that in the Republic?
Because there's
just for the
border.
banter.
No, because England didn't want it. Because England only wanted the fertile ground. Because the Ulster plantation they came over and made an Ulster plantation. So they put English settlers, like people in England with high wealth and high power. They settled them in Northern Ireland, and they wanted the fertile ground, the land. So they took the 6 counties with the most fertile ground. And then so when you go to Donegal, it's like bogland, like you get turf and all. I don't know if you have turf over here or in England. Like
I've never heard of it before.
Turf is like you wood burning, like it's an alternative. Like it's a longer burning fuel, but obviously England didn't want it. They wanted land to grow farms and all that, and that's why Northern Ireland's a very big agricultural land.
This picture I think shows that a little bit better as well. Like this one's a bit better than the other one because you can see where the border actually goes. Like the border goes up the side past Donegal. Yeah. I never noticed that before. Wow. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So then obviously England wanted to keep them in the Ulster plantation, so they that when England first came over, they planted in Ulster, really like put their roots in as Lothes. So when 1916 happened, when the revolution happened, they obviously the stronghold was in the north, so it was harder to get rid of. But throughout the rest of the Republic now, they got that back, the counties, but they still are fighting today about the 6 in the north. But then the IRA came about, the Irish Republican Army, which tried to take back the north in around the 70s. But also at the same time, the UVF, which is the Ulster Volunteer Force, which is the English terrorist group. So they're both terrorist groups in the
Okay, so the IRA is the Republic terrorist group.
No, it's like the Irish, it's like just the whole of Ireland.
Okay.
Like
okay.
they wouldn't consider it a terrorist group. I think it's very up to you, because it obviously governments condemn everything, but then they give them money and all to do what they do on the side. So like the English were given money to the UVF, which was condemned by the Irish government as a terrorist group, whereas Ireland was given money to the IRA in secret as well.
England condemned as a terrorist group. Okay.
So obviously it depends what side you're on.
It's and so then, complicated. My head's
like, do you remember in America, like how they're going on about how bad rubber bullets were and all, and like how dangerous they are? Well, the British made them in 1970 to fight off Irish Republicans trying to take back the country. So the whole rubber bullet came from here, or well, back home, to obviously stop riots in 1970s when the Troubles were. The Troubles were just like a big movement trying to get the counties back. But then the Good Friday Agreement was made when America tried to step in and was like, well, we're going to try and help the conflict here. And decided, okay, there's going to be a power sharing government. You don't have this over here. It's a Tory or a Labour government, like it's either or. Whereas back home, it's DUP, which is the Protestant side, it represents the Protestants, and then there's Sinn Féin, who represents the Republicans or Catholics.
So pretty much like most of like society in Ireland, from my perspective anyway, tell me if I'm wrong, seems like it's like Ireland is so heavily like religion.
Well, they blame it on they blame it on religion, but it's not really. It's nationalists and loyalists. A loyalist is someone loyal to the Queen or Britain, whereas a nationalist is to the nation. So obviously the Republic of Ireland. So that's what it is. It's loyalists and nationalists. It's not really Catholics and Protestants, but people bring it in. People bring in religion to it because it's easier to rally behind a god or a figure than it is to.
Because as well, so obviously, so the Protestants are seen as people who are from, I mean, I don't have a religious affiliation, but because I'm christened with the Church of England, that makes me a Protestant. So technically, like, so people associate Protestants with Britain, right? So Protestants, loyalists.
Well, that's back home.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't mean, like, if you're a Protestant, it doesn't mean that you're a loyalist. It just means that you're a Protestant, or like, if I'm a Catholic, it doesn't mean I'm a nationalist or if I'm a loyalist. But a person who's a loyalist is loyal to the Queen, and then a nationalist is back home, is like to Ireland.
Okay. Wow.
And then the Good Friday Agreement was made in, I say, the late 80s, because like I remember my mum explaining to me what was happening, because like back in the 80s they had to get checked going in the shops if they have bombs, guns, like anything, which is really recent in history if you think about it. Like, I'm surprised you don't get taught this in England. That's I think it's a very, I feel like English people come off very ignorant, but like, you just don't mean it. You just haven't been taught it in school.
This is very interesting, because this is exactly what happened when we started dating, wasn't it? You were like, oh, you know about like the potato famine and stuff, and I was like, the what? And you were like, you know what, like England into Ireland, right? And I was like,
yeah, it's
no.
like England loves to talk about the World War and like the wars, because like they're seen as the good guys throughout the whole history. But then you don't get taught about like Churchill like going to India and causing a mass like genocide, basically, like to people over in India. I don't.
Did you ever learn any Irish history, Liv, at school?
I also only did history for like 2 years, which is
because like I think in England it's like really common for them to teach us like history. So like you said, like the World War, or like what's it called, like the civil
Tudors.
rights movement and stuff in America as you go up. So yeah, we learn about Tudors, Vikings, all of that like really young, and then like as you go up they start to introduce you to like world history a little bit. So it's like civil rights history, a little bit of German history with like the World War and stuff, but nothing really too specific. But I remember when we first started going out and you would say things and I was like, we didn't, and you were like, how did you not learn this? We learned about English history. And I was like,
yeah, that's what I find weird, because we learned all that. Like we learned about the Tudors, the Vikings, the World Wars, all of it, and even the civil rights movements in America as well. But then you don't learn like all our history as well. It's very strange.
yeah,
It's
You
only
know,
It's massively one-sided.
I think it's very strange because it's very intertwined to each other. Like it's, I don't know how you just brush it away or something.
yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me considering like we're all, I mean, I've got to be careful how I phrase this because I know you'll correct me, but like because we're all part of like one part, I don't know how to describe it without being like incorrect, but you know what I mean, like
Well,
because we're all so
because
close to each other.
all Great Britain and Northern Ireland, whereas it's part of the United Kingdom.
I swear I've said the United Kingdom before though, and you're like, Northern Ireland's not in the UK.
It's not part of Britain, but like obviously I'd say it's not part of Britain because I don't want it to be. But
No, I know it's not part of Britain, but it's part of the UK, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
We like the Venn diagrams. It's like Britain, United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
British
like, no.
Isle.
But then obviously there's riots breaking out again because there was a Sinn Féin funeral, like I don't know if it was an IRA member, like a past IRA member, and there was a big funeral like last year, and they broke COVID rules, and they're all loyalists were all freaking out. It's like, why is this fair and all? And then they think the police service in Northern Ireland is on the Sinn Féin side, like nationalist sides, like which is not at all. It's just like obviously you would look at it that way to start anything. And then obviously since Brexit, there's going to be no hard border in Ireland. There's not going to be a border there between us and the south. It's going to be in the sea, in the Irish Sea. And it's so obviously the loyalists are freaking out. It's like, you're ruining my identity. It's like a big thing, identity back home. Like, see, I don't like, so when it's really funny because when I went to England, there's like I never see a Union Jack or anything. But see,
this is a really, really interesting point actually, because I remember like when I first came onto your flat, you have an Irish flag hanging up, right? And there's something about like we've talked about this so many times before, because growing up, I don't know whether you feel the same, Liv. If you had a Union Jack up, it like obviously it was like patriotic, whatever, but it could give off the wrong impression. And especially if you had an English flag up, like the white flag with the red cross, it came across as you were very like, I don't know what it stands for, but isn't it like the EDL? Like you seem like you're an EDL member, which is like a group who just like love England so much and don't want anybody who's not from England in England, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's seen as massively sort of say xenophobic to anyone who's not from England. If you put an English St George's flag up, like you'd see that in someone's garden and be like,
oh, avoid them. Yeah, whereas like it seems like it's like pretty normal. And even when we talked about this, didn't we? Because I was like, we said once, because I don't know, again, if you feel the same, that if growing up, I never thought there was like a difference between saying like, oh, I'm English or oh, I'm British. Like the both to me were interchangeable. And I remember when we were talking about this, you were like, no, you should say you're English, because saying you're British shows that you have like an allegiance to the monarchy. Whereas if you just say you're English, it's just you from your country. But for me, if anything, I would always say I was British, because saying I was English seemed more xenophobic and more like I'm English. But obviously not from an outside perspective, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, because like back home, it's if you classify yourself as British, you would have a flag up every day, like, and but like if like people saw that, like it's really in history, if you left a flag up and let it tattered and all, like let it rip, it would be a sign of disrespect. But they don't see that. Like loyalists don't see that. They just want the flag up to say, yes, I'm British, I'm here, I'm not moving. Whereas like you don't see a tricolour like as much. Like
so tricolour, sorry, side note, tricolour is like the Irish flag. It's called a tricolour. Like we would call the British flag a Union Jack. That's what it is. Yeah.
But like we don't, like it's never really up unless it's like St. Paddy's Day or something, or like it's not a big thing to have the tricolour up. But like if you are a loyalist, you have to have the Union Jack up, and it's very strange because like when you're growing up, like you see the Union Jack and like they're all their beliefs, because like the DUP don't like gays, don't like same, like they don't want the marriage, they don't want abortions, they're really against all this stuff. It's like it's
Is the
like,
DUP the Protestant one?
Yeah, the loyalist one.
Protestant,
Whereas
yeah.
like then so like in my like when you're growing up, like as a young person, like you're just thinking it's like, oh, all of England's like this. Like you're just thinking that because that's how they come across.
That talking about identity and stuff with saying like British or English or whatever, if you ever encounter an Irish or a Scottish or a Welsh person, do not call them British.
I think it's the same over in Austria and Germany, because like if someone called you called someone German and they're Austrian, it's a very big insult.
Yeah.
So so obviously it's the same. I think it's
like you can see like there's a famous actor who comes from Ireland, isn't there, called Cillian Murphy. If anyone's seen Peaky Blinders, he's the main guy in Peaky Blinders. But there's an interview where he's with, I think it's what's his name's like Tom something.
It's
Tom Hardy, yeah. And he's in an interview and the woman says something like, oh, what do you think about being British or something? And he was like, I'm not British. And then she was like, no, but you're from, and he was like, no, I'm not British, I'm Irish. And it's really uncomfortable to watch because he's just like, no, I'm Irish, I'm not British.
And then Tom Hardy's like sitting there like when she's saying it,
he's like, no, cut it out, like stop, don't say that. No. Yeah. Sorry, that was
we mentioned this the other day that like as far as I'm aware, there is no adjective to say that you're from the United Kingdom.
No, like you wouldn't say like I'm a United Kingdom-ish.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't exist.
So
you just
yeah, true. But like still, like if somebody said like, oh, what do you think about being from the UK? You would be like, I'm not from the UK, I'm from Ireland. Wouldn't you? Yeah. But I feel like that distinction is only really like, I think this is one of the things I was saying about growing up thinking like you could say British or you could say English, is like growing up we don't, because we're from England, and I feel like we're not like one of the one, like I don't know if you agree, but I feel like it's sort of like with Austria and Germany a little bit. Like I feel like people forget that Austrians speak German, but they're not German, they're Austrians. And it's like we get taught so much about like German history and stuff and they don't really teach us about Austrian history or culture at uni. And I feel like it's kind of the same. Like I feel like because you guys speak English, everyone kind of just goes, oh yeah, you're just from England. And it's like, no, like you are your own country. It's like a sense of identity. If somebody called you British, it's like, no, I'm not. Like that's part of my identity is being Irish. Like I'm not English. Whereas we are like so dominant in it, people just think of us really. I don't mean that in an ignorant way. I just feel like people kind of forget to say Scottish people are Scottish and Welsh people are Welsh and Irish people are Irish. And so for you guys, it is a sense of identity, whereas I would never need to say, oh, I'm English, because being English isn't part of my identity.
Yeah. But also like generally I have been impressed, like this is totally a side note, but like from what we've seen of textbooks here, there is an awful lot about not just England, that there is a far bigger focus on the English speaking world. And like we'll see texts on someone coming from like South Africa or Australia or Canada, or say someone Scotland, Wales, Ireland, whereas when we learned about German, it's Germany and the German speaking world.
It's not the German speaking world, it's
note.
Germany and then these other ones.
And I never learned anything about Austria or Switzerland, and it was only when I did my exams my teacher was like, you can't say Germany, you have to say the German speaking world, to almost pretend that we've taught you about more than just Germany.
And I think from my perspective it's like kind of similar. Like you know, we haven't learned about Irish history or Scottish history or Welsh history. I only knew, like to this day I still couldn't tell you what St. Paddy's Day is. I just know that people celebrate it when they're from Ireland, because we didn't even learn things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't really teach us anything.
It's over the St. Patrick's Day. I think it's a big religious, it's supposed to be a religious event, but obviously it's not anymore. It's just a day of drinking. In Ireland it's a religious event, but transformed into a day of drinking basically, or just getting absolutely drunk. Just that's it. Because like
and wearing green.
St. Patrick is obviously just the patron saint of Ireland, but he's not. St. Patrick's not even Irish.
Is he not?
I think the origin story is a bit weird about it, but he either came from Wales or he came from Scotland. And then he was taken away on a slave boat, because obviously there's a big slavery problem in Ireland, because like the Irish was enslaved for ages, and like even over in America, like if you see the signs on the internet, it was no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Like that's what a common thing was, like because it was just it was an easy people. The English did like enslaving people, like back in the day, like, so it's a bit different, like, because you obviously were all hungry for power, and obviously it broke down now. So
sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It's just the way you say power is really cute.
oh,
That's the word power, just in case anybody was wanting a translation on that one. You reckon, like, because obviously Ireland, like the religion and stuff is like so prominent and stuff. How would you say, like, what was your childhood like growing up in Ireland and stuff? Because I have a feeling that like mine and Liv's childhoods in England would have been obviously very different to your childhood in Ireland.
well, you had to obviously watch what you said or watch what you were. Like, I couldn't walk around in Gaelic, which is like a jersey, like representing my county or something, like, which is like Gaelic gear. I couldn't wear any of that with the risk of getting like jumped or like stabbed or something. And I could, like, if I went to Hollywood, which is a very loyalist area, my dad would say it's a black hole, which is just a idiom or whatever, just where like where loyalists are.
Yeah.
They you couldn't. I remember distinctly going in the car, my mom going, "You cannot say H, you have to say H," because there's a big, like, if someone
You can't say H.
Yeah, because H is with, like, if you say words with a H noise, like if you say, I would say hello, or like, but like I think it, like, if you say it with an H like noise instead of a H noise, like you get caught out, and then people will notice that you're a different religion from them.
That is mad. I remember the first, I love just watching Liv's face because I already know this stuff, but like Liv just went like, because I remember the first time, like it blows my mind that, like, because even today, right, if you went around in, so like the jersey that he's talking about is like, if you buy like a football strip, for example, with like your favorite footballer's name and number on the back for something like that, you can get those for like certain like Gaelic teams and stuff, can't you? And like yours is like, you know, just represents your county, which obviously if you go to like certain parts, people will know that like you're Catholic probably. So like, would you say like even now if you went to some places, like you could be stabbed if you were wearing a jersey?
Like if I went to East Belfast and more, I definitely would reconsider my life choices and start maybe write my will.
And it's like, isn't it as well, like when you went to some party, I remember you'd driven somewhere and you'd driven to some place in Belfast, I don't know where it was, and you were like, oh, I have to like de-Catholic my car, like you had to like take things down to make it not look like it was.
I think I was near the Shankill Road, and the Shankill Road is a very, so like in Belfast is big thing, where like Finicky is a very nationalist road, where it's like big Celtic flags, and you know, Celtic and Rangers are a big thing. Like Rangers is supposed to be like a loyalist thing, and a Celtic's supposed to be a nationalist thing. And they're Scottish teams though. It's very strange, but like obviously Finicky is like the nationalist, the Irish side, and then Shankill is the loyalist Protestant side. So obviously I can't have, like, if they saw a slitter or a Gaelic ball in the car, I couldn't have it there. I would have to hide it or like make it not look like that. I think it's very strange though, and I just remember getting taught like hide your identity all the time, but like I thought like loyalists were very ignorant, where the fact were like they could show it all they want. They own the, like we were nearly walked on, like we own this place, and you're like, it's very strange where like you don't have the 12th of July. Like it's not a big thing in England, but like the 12th of July is the day King Billy, you're obviously King William for you, took over Ireland, and it was he lit a bonfire from Dublin all the way up to the north to say he conquered Ireland, and that's the history there of the 12th of July. So every 12th of July in Ireland, they like the loyalists light bonfires to show that, look, we took over your country. And it was a big thing in the news, because this Catholic priest hung himself because he couldn't cope with like depression and all, and they so the loyalists decided to put up an effigy of a guy on a beam, and hung a dummy of the priest, like a model of him, and lit it on fire. And all the news didn't, because obviously the news is BBC, a British broadcast centre, so they're like, oh no, look at these festivities, like we're all like, they're all loving their culture, and you're sitting there like they're literally like making fun of people who've just killed themselves. Like it's really disrespectful. But obviously it's how the media like really shuns away, like that wants to paint an image for people to look at. And I think that's why obviously you just don't see it as bad, because like you see it on the news of oh, this is really great, this is like all happening over here, but obviously behind the scenes of what the picture's not getting told, it's a lot worse.
Yeah, I think like even from my point of view, like in terms of like identity and stuff, I think we were quite lucky that like growing up I never had to like hide anything. I don't think like I never had to like feel ashamed that I was, you know, English or put from a part of England. I think maybe sometimes like having to, I think for me, probably the only thing that I ever felt like ashamed of was being Northern English, because I feel like if you don't know, obviously you guys will know, but maybe students wise, like there's a big divide, I would say, not as big as in Ireland, but there's a big like social class divide with like stereotypes of the south and the north of England. So stereotypically people who were poorer, people from working classes, people who were more common came from the north, and people who were wealthier and better, you know, people who thought they were better came from the south. So for me, if I ever speak to somebody who's from the south who I don't know, I'll automatically not speak with such a northern accent, or I'm very conscious of like how I'm coming across, because I don't want them to think I'm common or I'm like of a lower social class, for example. But I think that's probably the only thing that I ever felt like I had to dumb down.
Well, we have that. We have the social class like thing, but like it's more actually just the loyalists were like considered the rich ones, and then everyone under was like nationalists, Catholics, or whoever were considered like beneath them. They were doing working class jobs or whatever. Like getting, it's because like when England gave all the jobs to in the north to the loyalists, they had the money, they had the obviously power control, and it's really funny because obviously you can't have back in the day you couldn't vote. It was in the late early 1900s. You couldn't vote if you didn't own property, and all the property were given to the English settlers. So in Uri, a dominant nationalist like thing right on the border. Basically, it is on the border, but like it's in the north of Ireland, so Northern Ireland. It's a nationalist city, but because England came over, gave it all to the English. All the ones who voted obviously owned the houses were English. So anyone living in the house couldn't vote, because if they were obviously they're nationalists, they couldn't vote. It was just the English voting on their behalf. And obviously you're going to vote for an English or loyalist side. And that's how they got such a stronghold in politics, because it was kind of rigged.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's screwing the system against them.
Yeah.
Do you think that you had any, because you're obviously from the south of England, so maybe you didn't have, I'm presuming you never felt like you had to like speak with less of an accent or anything like that. Like, do you think there's anything that growing up you felt ashamed of in terms of identity that you had to hide with?
No, not really, because I never went far out of my village. It's only like I don't think it's nearly as bad as the reverse, where say people tend to this is still, I saw something on Twitter about it not long ago, like it's still a problem in TV shows where they'll cast or they'll specifically look for more Northern English accents to play someone who's more working class. So it's like it's still keeping some kind of divide, and even like cartoons and things, or in films that are meant to be set in other countries but they'll still speak English, you'll still have this like, right, we'll go for Northern English accents to indicate a lower class.
100%. And there was even a text that I read in one of the lessons with some of the students where like it was so prominent that they were really trying to like distinguish the characters as like higher or lower, like in a hierarchy based off accent alone, because like in the text they would use like proper English, and then like the chef, for example, would say things like, oh, your ma and stuff, and it's like they're really trying to show you that like this is a northerner and they're a really like common person, they're not going to be the wealthy ones. And I wonder if it just comes from because like the like Buckingham Palace and like the royal family is more down
it's
south.
Simply just like it's not even a stereotype, like it's just historically accurate in the way that, like, you know, you put your capital city somewhere in the south, therefore your wealth is going to spread around the south, and then it's just historically like just so that's just the way that the country's then evolved, that you've got like say the wealth dominated in the south, and then that's where that splits come from. But say like it's got no place in like modern TV shows and things. You're making something like Downton Abbey, for example, like that's meant to be an accurate representation of what that household would have looked like. But if you're creating a TV show set in the modern day, it's like it's not an acceptable sort of stereotypes keep pushing forward. And I mean, occasionally at uni, like my accent has gotten much posher since being here, because like that's what I'm here to do. Like the teachers want like the purest form of my accent from me. But at uni, like there'll be times where because it's like going to Oxford, I'm surrounded by people who are from private schools and things, and I don't want to like put myself with them. When people will hear how I speak and be like, oh, it's like, yes, I am.
She's just
yes,
another one
person.
of those. Yeah.
I'm just another person from the south near London who happens to go to Oxford. So like I will say it's not nearly as bad as like the reverse situation, but like I will go into more Essex than, because I just don't have an Essex accent. I happen to have a standard British English accent, but I will like sort of mellow it to try and not be like, sort of, people will automatically make an assumption that like, oh, you probably went to something, you know, you probably went to Harrow or Westminster. I'm like, no.
Yeah, because it's like there's a whole meme about it online. You could definitely find it where it's like people who stereotypically go to Oxford are the people who's like, Daddy, I need a pony. I don't have a pony. And it's like the whole like entitled like people who went to private schools and stuff. So yeah, that does make sense.